Hello everybody, I am Ben from Team Panic, and today we're going to be looking at how Annie, Are You OK? My undercutter beetle weight went at ARC's November meet. So the last video you guys saw was upgrades on Annie, Are You OK? So this is Annie in her completed form after those upgrades. I just slapped some armor top, bottom, or top, front and back, and got her all working. However, I was doing that really quite close to the event, so I didn't actually ever have time to try and spin the weapon up until right there at the event. And this is what happened. Which is to say, nothing happened. It looks like when I did the pulley for this front weapon, I used an old design, not the current design, and it means that the pulley, rather than being this big, it was this big, which is not a lot of difference, and it's just enough to allow the belt to slip. So I thought I was going to be in big trouble here. However, the belt that I was running was an old belt. It had gone through a couple of fights and a couple of spin-ups already. So I decided to go for broke and try a brand new belt because I thought it might be my only option here. I also took a screwdriver and just scored up the inside of the pulley to try and get a bit more grip and a bit more thickness on it. I didn't know if that was going to work, but I was going for broke here. So then this happened. And the weapon spun up with a brand new belt, so that's really good. But it seems like we're basically going to need a new belt for every single fight. And while I do have some spares, I don't really think I have that many. So we're going to have to be a little bit careful about how we do this and how we approach each and every single one of these fights. So, first up, we are going up against a robot called Zim, which is a full body spinner. And this time around, it used to have a fry pan or a saucepan or something, or a bowl on top of it. Now it has a silicon bowl with a thick steel rim around the bottom of it. It's a very interesting design. It's also gone from using attacking tips to actual flails, which is a very interesting design choice as well. So let's see how this one goes. So, Annie worked. The weapon spun up. I mean, we are losing a little bit of power because that pulley isn't quite right. We will fix that before the next meet. Like I said, literally it just needs to be printed just like 0.5 millimeter bigger and everything would be totally fine. But that's the way that goes. We won that fight because Zim's silicon, we hit the ring and the silicon popped up, exposing the battery. And of course, once a battery is exposed, that's it. Fight has to end. You cannot continue from that point on. So yeah, that wasn't too bad. I did also, for the first time, lose one of the glass eyes because I had the purple glass doll's eyes on Annie. And that did shatter and did leave some glass in the arena. So I decided I'm probably not going to use those for any further fights. They're fun and they're interesting, but yeah, I don't really like the fact that I was leaving glass in the arena. That's not a good thing, and it seems like something that could actually sway a fight in terms of like if an eye pops off and it is glass, and then that shreds a weapon belt or shreds a tire or something, especially if it shreds my weapon belt and my tire, I'm not going to be too happy about that. There's not too much more to say about that fight. It was relatively quick. We both kind of knew that our weapons were a little bit underpowered. So yeah, that was just that one. Now, it's good though that the weapon is working because up next we are fighting Lumberjack. Now, if you've been on this channel and seen any beetle weight fighting here before, you will know Lumberjack. It is a very scary vertical spinner, and it's actually part of the reason Annie needed an upgrade. Previous fights with Lumberjack have been the ones where Annie has been dealing damage to herself, and also in a rumble Lumberjack managed to completely rip the weapon off of Annie, which was really not a good thing. So yeah, hopefully this will be a good test of these upgrades. I mean, this is what we did these upgrades for, so let's see if they made any difference at all. So yes, the upgrades worked. And yes, I did put a brand new belt. I'm basically swapping belts between every fight at this point in time. But I am kind of running out of belts now, but I knew that going up against Lumberjack, I needed the weapon spinning. I needed that going. So I put in a brand new weapon belt and it was so worth it. Annie was thrown twice, like full on thrown across the arena twice. And the upgrades are insane. There is no damage in under here. None of the bolts have been hit. Nothing seemed to be really damaged. I mean, we did lose a bearing we did lose one of the balls in one of the bearings in here, but that was a pretty quick and easy swap when we were going through and changing belts over, as I need to do every fight at the moment. But yeah, that worked really well. The underside of Annie is totally fine after that fight, and I'm just so happy. We can now take huge levels of punishment, and he was hitting the weapon. The actual fact, he hit the weapon so much and took so much chunks out, so the chunks out of the weapon unbalanced the weapon. That's how much he managed to hit the weapon. So the fact that we survived that and had a working weapon all the way through, beautiful. So this is really, really, really good news. Basically, I just need to print that pulley that's running the weapon just that little bit bigger, and we will be golden on this, because that type of fight is one of the ones that I wanted to test this new upgrade. I mean, obviously, I also want to fight a big horizontal spinner, test out the new armor, but this should hold up okay. It is very similar to armor we've used in the past, so I'm less worried about that, and I was more worried about the weapon stack up and how all of that was going to work. It worked well. So, moving on forwards, I have another fight. This one is up against Mind the Gap, which is a wedge bot built by the same guy as Battlebot, both of which are competing today. And Mind the Gap is going okay in the tournament, not too well, not too bad. So I thought that this would be a good chance to try and conserve some weapon belts and try something new. So rather than put on a brand new weapon belt between the Lumberjack fight and this one, I simply turned the weapon belt inside out. My thinking here was that because one of the pulleys is toothed, flicking the whole weapon belt inside out would actually mean that it was slightly larger radius, because the toothed weapon belt, it would then not be engaging into the teeth. It was just a theory. Basically, I did a quick spin-up test and it seemed to go okay. So let's see if that actually did the job for us. Yeah, no. Yep, that did not work. So we ended up, just having a pushing match there. Like I said, it did spin the weapon up once, but I think by the time it had spun the weapon up once, it just stretched just a little bit, and that's really all it needed in that case. Just a tiny little bit of stretch, and I lose weapon completely. So that was just, it ended up being a pushing match. So we got a draw on that one because it went the full 3 minutes. So we're sitting at 2 wins and a draw, which isn't bad. And this, I erroneously thought that this was going to be round robin and then finals, but in fact it is just round robin and winner is done on points. So up next, we are going up against the leader of the pack currently, which is Battlebot, also built by the builder of Mind the Gap. It is another pusher style robot, this time with massive wheels and big clampy, big flappy arms, almost like a dustpan, but without a dustpan in the bottom of it. So let's see how this one goes. So, I don't know what happened to the weapon. I did change the weapon belt out. However, I have a feeling, considering that the weapon didn't spin up, that I changed the weapon to a weapon that had been used already. A weapon belt that had been used already. I also did change back to the bow tie blade for the last 2 of these fights, just because, as I said, Lumberjack had completely unbalanced the single tooth weapon that I was running early on in the day. So given that I am a weaponed robot with tiny little wheels and he has big wheels with lots of traction, as soon as the weapon did power up, I knew I was going to lose that fight, or at least draw it. There wasn't really any way I was going to win that thing. I did relatively well pushing him around, considering how little traction Annie has, and also the fact that these weapon motors, drive motors, have been in Annie for 3 events so far, and they are actually a little bit on the wobbly side at the moment. So they're not the greatest motors. They're good enough to get the weapon into a robot when I have the weapon going, but when I don't have the weapon going, they're a little bit on the anemic side and not quite good enough to push back against a very tractiony robot like that. So it is what it is. I mean, once the weapon spun up, I knew I was in trouble, and I did get the loss on that one. So that is our 4 round robin fights. How did we do at the end of all of that? Well, we had the 2 wins, 1 draw and 1 loss, and that actually put us on even stakes with Mind the Gap, the robot that we drew to. Now, normally in this type of scenario, there would be a count back and see who won the fight between myself and Mind the Gap, because we're on the same number of points. However, we drew that fight, so there could be no count back, which means we're actually in a playoff for 3rd place with Mind the Gap. And rummaging through all of the stuff that I brought with me, I did manage to find one absolutely guaranteed to be brand new weapon belt, because I found it still in the bag, and I was like, yes, this is good. So we replaced the weapon belt again, this time with a known brand new weapon belt, and we're going straight on into this fight. That was fun! So that fight did last the full 3 minutes, and we won on judges' decision. So we have a 3rd place for Annie, Are You Okay? And honestly, I am not unhappy about that. Obviously, the weapon slip issue was fairly massive for this event, but in the grand scheme of things, in terms of Annie's design and where Annie is sitting, that is really minor. I can fix that. Well, basically I fixed that already. Haven't actually installed the new pulley, but it is sitting on the printer right now, ready to be installed and tested, but literally it's just 0.5 millimeter more diameter, more radius on this pulley down the front here, and it's totally sorted. So we can come back with Annie. We're going to put new drive motors in. We're going to put the new pulley in, and everything is just going to work so much better. This was a great test of those new upgrades. Like I said, it's a minor issue. I mean, it plagued us for the entire event, but in the grand scheme of things, it is not hard to fix. So Annie is going to be up and running and working super well for the next event, and I am really happy about that one. I am already kind of starting to think about Season 3 of Battlebots. I know Season 2 hasn't even released on YouTube yet, but I am just that keen. I want Annie working as good as I possibly can for Battlebots in Season 3. However, there's more stuff that I'll talk about on that later, because of course the UK run a higher weight class Beetle. They run a 1.5 kilo Beetle rather than the 1.3 kilo Beetle. So these fights and things that you've seen Annie do this year don't really give you any indication of how Annie did over at Battlebots, because Annie over at Battlebots was a different machine. She was a lot heavier, the weight was distributed differently, there was some stuff that I had to rip all back out again before I could fight her back here in Australia, because she was just overweight. So I guess when Battlebots, I am really keen to see that season air. There's some good fights coming up in that. And yeah, I'm looking forward to potentially doing a Season 3 of Battlebots at some point in the future with Annie all upgraded and even meaner than she was at Battlebots Season 2. But I think I've said too much on that. So anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed this one, and I will see you in the next video.